Okay, right. So I just wanted to flick through this article thing here. So what I've done is I've looked for a modern day steel framed but brick, stone, infills, whatever, building, what we do today. Because so this is referring to like the old well buildings, yeah, and seeing some of the construction photos, those old buildings, right, kind of gives the impression that they want you to think it's a steel frame building, right, with like a cladding, so not like a solid brick. If you imagine a slice of a brick, yeah, and that would be the same for like stonework and all that, which is what they do. It is a construction material, or decorative, we'll say, because on a steel frame building, the strength, all the load bearing stuff is the steel framework. Now this would normally include the roof, the trusses, yeah, the apex, all that stuff, right? But I actually think that's got to be specified now, because you can get a steel frame building that doesn't include all the roof structure, yeah, so it will go up to form where the roof will start, yeah, but you have to put the rest in wood, yeah, and then felt batten tile it to make it waterproof. So there's, as in this article, as they explained, at one point the carpenter had to cut you had to cut the joists for the roof, some of the trusses and that, to go around the actual steel framework that was, you know, in a spot where it was going to interfere with the construction of the roof out of wood. Anyhow, that's irrelevant. So this is, I think they finished it in 2018, so it's relatively modern. Or they say it's really modern. And like, so what's involved with this? Well, I can tell you now, right, the time it took to build this place is 2 years. Right, 2 years. Now that is not including the groundwork. Now the groundwork, right, is what the building sits on, which can come in, well, several different several different layouts. You can have like trenches, a foundation that would mirror the outline or the outer wall of a building. So it's easy to think of an extension. It's like a backwards C, isn't it? Yeah, you come out a bit, go across, and then come in. And that's what your foundation would be. And standard trench for a foundation, for just a single floor extension, is like 1 metre deep, right? Has to be square, right? Or else the architect won't pass it for concreting. So you get nice and square, nice and flat, fill it up with 1 metre deep of concrete, right? That's your foundation. That's an easy method, right? Or depending on your ground, right, you might have to have piling foundation, where they have to drill down with a big fucking rig that has to be got in. You know, if you're having piling done for your foundation, you're starting to spend a lot of money and a lot more work. So steelwork obviously would have to be anchored to a base, just like bricks will have to sit on concrete trench foundations, right? So the ground has to be cleared, levelled, right? The various tests of the ground would already be known, so the type of foundation going in would already be known, where this one had to sit on a platform, right? It was going to be piled, right? but they couldn't do the piling because it turns out there used to be a quarry nearby to this site. So the ground wasn't, so I'm assuming the reason they couldn't do it is because they only got part way down before they was in some kind of underground void from the fucking quarry mining. So you wouldn't be able to fill it with concrete then to make the pile. Yeah? So it works. It's like a big hollow tube. Imagine a big hollow tube that goes down a certain depth and there's a certain width and you fill it up with concrete. It's a pile. Some have square, round, it just depends on the ground as well. So it was a platform. But it's on this they're not specific about it. They just say it was hard work and took ages. But just check it out anyhow. Check it out what it looks like, right? Now what they're saying is this is a modern steel frame building with what appears to be Cotswold stone in between, brickwork and all that. But that is not actually what it is. Right, I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, oh yeah, look, I can zoom in. All this stuff, you see with the trees, see all the bricks, or Cotswold stone, right? All this, everything. Not this though, that's the roof. They're tiles. But all this that looked bricks are Cotswold stone, right? Which it is, but it's a thin slice, right? And they come in panels, right? So this where this little tree is, right? That could be 1 or 2 pieces that are attached to the framework. Yeah, there's no brickwork behind it, right? And it forms what looks like stonework. Okay, people call it cladding as well, right? But this cladding comes in as many different masonry types as you could probably imagine and more, right? All the different types of bricks, all are done as a cladding as well, right? And if it ain't, they'll probably do it for you. Right, but again, all panels, right, fixed over steelwork of what they want to call a modern house, but with an old school feel. But it's definitely not got old school feel to it. I think, yeah, perhaps that's what they hoped they would achieve, but it's just alright, it's a house, right? Mum, dad and a couple of kids, just 2 or 3 bedrooms. The tricky groundworks didn't stop Miles Hancock from creating a contemporary and stylish holiday home in the idyllic surroundings of the Cotswold, right? It's got figures of how much this geezer was paid and stuff. It must have been pretty well fucking minted in the first place. I think that's an advert. Right, with its mix of contemporary design and use of vernacular materials, the stunning home in the Cotswold is packed with interest and detail. And no, it ain't. Hawford House is both spacious and well proportioned, with well thought out spaces inside and out. Well thought out spaces. What are you talking about? An architect draws a design of what you've told him or what the design is, and all the spaces are within that already. It's a consequence of the shape, isn't it? I mean, it's as simple as that. It doesn't. The interior setup of the house could be pretty much whatever you wanted to do, because there's no interior load-bearing walls, so you could throw up some stud work and put a wall anywhere. So it doesn't really come into it, I don't think. But I don't know, maybe not. This home is faced in Cotswold stone, and what that means is it's a veneer, a thin slice on a panel of whatever size. But I'll say it again, listen, the home is faced in Cotswold stone and has a stepped and angular form that adds depth and intrigue. Now what they're referring to there are what we see in particular on the bottom portion or section, so from the ground up a couple of metres, tends to be a rougher looking stone, doesn't it? You know, and there are reasons why you do that. You know, if it's solid stonework, then that will be for strength, as well as its ability to endure, like the weather, the elements, because that portion of a building can be susceptible to like water incursions. So, you know, people nowadays we put in a damp course level, which is like a strip that goes across the top of the brickwork. So you do your foundation, right, and then you use a special type of, like, well, it's a solid type of brick called an engineering brick, right, that is, you know, you wouldn't be able to get water into it for it to be soaked, so to speak. They're that solid, right? So you throw in about 5 courses on top of the foundation, if it's going up in brick, yeah. Then you put on what's called a damp proof course, which is a membrane that sits across the bricks and stops, well, creates a barrier between the rest of the building and water. Yeah, which is, you know, kind of makes sense, but it doesn't really work quite as simply as that. Although, you know, in theory, it should work, but you still get houses with damp, and it's always a problem, probably always will be. So that angular type of description they're given now is actually what we see. That is them. If you could zoom into some of them buildings, you'll see they've got edges, right, chamfered, angular, yeah, but the centre part of it is like a rough textury surface. But you know, that's part of it. When you stand back and look at it, we've got all them nice edges and that rough bit. It looks good, it's brilliant. But you know, there's a big difference between this, right, and what we actually see on some of them old buildings. Actually, this ain't quite that description, is it? Right, and it doesn't actually fit the description of what I just read out either, to be honest. I was expecting it to have like 4 edges and a raised centre. Yeah, you get the idea. What we'll see. So, yeah, that's the wrong description for the material that's been used. That's what it seems like. Anyhow, fuck them. Right. Its idyllic and picturesque aesthetic hides any sense of the testing journey to project completion. So it wasn't an easy job. They didn't build it themselves, by the way. They had like a site agent, so they had a clerk who controlled the chasing up of all the materials, the steel workers, the framework, everything. They didn't have to do anything. They paid someone to do it, which is fair enough. But it was still a bit of a fucking job to get it all done. But I'm not going to read through all this either. There's no way. There's a bit about the wife, right, who at some point see a kitchen that she liked and went and put a fucking deposit on it straight away because it was the one to go in the new house. But turns out, no, can't use that because it didn't go with what the actual design of the fucking kitchen space was. So they forfeited the down payment and went with someone completely different that supplied more than just the cupboards. I mean, nice one, wifey. Next time, leave the planning to the I nearly said to the guys, but you know, that'd be wrong. That'd be sexist. Because actually, girls do actually have a better idea on design than a lot of blokes. But whatever, doesn't matter, boy or girl. So I want to get to the bit here where they talk about how much money they put into it, right? Here we go. Right, so here's all the people and project manager, construction method, steel frame block, right? See that now, that steel frame block is deceptive, right? Because it's block slices on panels. It's not solid blocks, right? Now there are some certain conditions when putting in the foundations lead to things like, say for example, you have surfaces going through the area where said trench is going to have a foundation, right? And if you've got water pipes and that going through there, or for the toilets and all that, to the sewers, we can't just reroute them, right? So what you do is lintel over them, and you can use either a pre-made concrete slab, yeah, that would go over the pipe without breaking it, and then you shutter off the sides with some timber, and you can pour your concrete in then, and the pipe doesn't get crushed, doesn't break, it stays exactly where it is. But you can also use a type of cinder block for that process as well. But that is not what they're referring to there. Well, that I'm trying to make an excuse for them, but that is totally deceptive, because it's not blocks. Anyhow, project cost 830 grand. I mean, that is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. And look, total cost, right? I mean, that speaks for itself. 1.2 million, I think. No? That's what it looks like to me. But its value is 1.6. So, and it took 2 years. But that's without adding in the groundwork. So it took 2 years plus the groundwork. But that's just their work. Right, now I think they're saying it covers the whole lot. Yeah? And you'll see what I mean by that. So when I see these old buildings that people show, right, apart from the detail on the outside being just like, off the scale, right, just amazing. But then when you go inside, it's mental. That's the best way to describe it. Why they'd be so opulent, so bright, colourful, but individual, isn't it? They're all, although they are similar, they're not. There's individual characteristics about all of them, although they're similar. Yeah, you get them. Yeah, you know what I mean. So, okay, fair enough. We'll do all the floors in marble, right? Why not? Fuck it. Right, now again, what you got to get into order is, when they say we've done the floors in marble, right, we're looking at tiles, right? So it's thin, right? It's quarried, cut into tile thin slices. Yeah? Normally tiling, tiling's not difficult. Okay? I've seen tilers on building sites, right, throw tiles up so fucking quick, they're not really giving it enough time to dry. They are, but they ain't, if you know what I mean. On the packet it would say, oh no, a bit longer. But, when you work with a material, you know what you can get away with. And tilers, crazy, right, all day long. Bang, bang, bang. Do fucking rooms and hallways, and like, they can show a lot of work in a day, a lot. But that's because it's easy, right? As long as the walls and everything and the floor is all done properly and is all flat, level, square, upright and all that, right, tiling is a doddle. Right? What cuts do you have? Right? In most rooms they're square, or turn out square. right? So it's just square cuts, right? And well, once you've been tiling for a little while, you get used to how easy it is to cut tiles. And guys that have been doing tiling for years do, they show you how quickly it can be done. It's impressive, but it's just tiling. But let's just say that all these old buildings and these designs of the floors and all that are tiles and were put down by tilers. Fair enough. You could show a lot of work. You might even be able to do a few teams. I don't know. What I'm going to say is, I don't think tilers nowadays would even be able to compare to what the times are in these old buildings. Because the old buildings, they're not just white tiles, are they? Alright, there are designs, and a lot of places look like the the small tiling. I forgot what they call it now. Mosaic, yeah, all like that. And it's not just random pictures or whatever, things that don't make sense. It's proper depictions of images, sceneries, places, design flags and all things like that. Crazy, right? And something I've learned in my experience in the building industry, right, is when you look at the outside of a building or even railings, right, and you see the shapes and the patterns of the railings, and even with railings, even what the motif type thing is that sits atop one of the railings, yeah, like a lot of them look like spear points, which some of them actually are, right. So the point is, yeah, they're not just random. They're not just, someone doesn't just look at a shape and go, oh yeah, that'd be a good idea to put on the top of the railing points when we do our fence. No, it's not like that at all. Right, the stuff that is used is relevant to maybe something from the past, but connected to the people, yeah, that have got these fencings. And it's the same with the styles of the mouldings and that you see on the outsides and on the insides of buildings. Yeah, the different type of scroll work and the dental work, not teeth that is, that's what they call these little they look like the edge of a brick. Yeah, like a particular type of brick. And it's, it's in a lot of things. But even the mouldings, yeah, your coving, you see, and your ceiling stuff that's done with plaster moulding, right? So a lot of it is, it's a mould, right? But doesn't mean it's any easier at all, right? Any easier than attaching solid stuff up there, like solid marble pieces or frameworks and things like that. The difference with that is the plaster moulded stuff is light and you can throw it up there quite easily and it will stay up there. But obviously, the more heavier the material is you're using, the better it's got to be attached, and the better the thing is it's being attached to. Yeah, it can't be wood, for example, or something flimsy. It has to be pretty fucking good, to be honest. So I've got a friend who's so what his job is called is he's a fibrous plasterer, and this is a plasterer that will just be dealing with all the fancy stuff, yeah, columns, whether they're fluted or not, and the top bits and all that, panels that go into walls that form like a little shelf and stuff, yeah, all out of plaster, or just frames that would form a picture frame, yeah, all the different styles of covings, ceiling roses, yeah. And he does restoration stuff. Well, maybe not restoration, could have wanted a better name. So if you've got an old building that you're going to renovate and you have areas where the covings, because when ceilings and roofs leak, the water comes in, because they're only moulds, they tend to start to fall off. and they have to be replaced. Things like down here in London, Essex, whatever, where I was. So Chelsea, one of the jobs he worked on, where I went and helped him for a little while, not attaching stuff, like, you know, just basically labouring for him. So Chelsea Town Hall, they had to make and replace damaged mould, like covings. And you make a mould of their coving and you make it on site, and they use fiberglass and plaster and like a hemp as well. Because, you know, it's not the sort of thing, I mean, I'm quite, you know, I can get a grip of many things within the building trade, but something like that, you know, you need a bit of experience to set it all up and to start to take the mould, yeah? But the more often you do a thing, the easier it gets. And guys that have been doing fibrous plastering for a while and know what they're doing, it's quite, you know, it's interesting to see them do what they do, because you think, how the fuck can they make a replica of something that only exists up there on that ceiling? But they do, and they make it look easy. But then, don't we all, if it's something you've done for a long time, you know, you tend to be good at it, and it becomes easy. I don't know, maybe like breathing, eh? So, look, it's just here it goes through the groundwork and all that. It's all rubbish, really. There's some interior bits. Look, so there's the kitchen. The fucking kitchen, look at it. I mean, sorry, but it's a fucking picnic table there, isn't it? Oh, it's a good idea, isn't it? How long did that one take to think of? But, you know, it's full of glass as well, as you can see. You'll see it, well, you see from the outside. They're trying to say, you know, if you read all this, it was funny. Right, so they're gonna go into the level, right? However, there was a lot more work to do than originally expected. This is with the groundwork. It's a sloping site. A sloping site. And now that is interesting, isn't it? Although it's not immediately apparent. Oh, so it doesn't look like it's on a hill. Right. The house is set 2 metres below the road level at the front, which is actually great for us, as it acts as a sound barrier. It acts as a sound barrier. So if you're on the ground floor and you're 2 metres below the road level, well, yeah, I can relate to that. I can understand why you think that would be a sound barrier, and it probably would. But as soon as you go upstairs, you're back at road height. So actually, what you think you gain, you probably lose, because you normally sleep upstairs, whatever. But so, point is, people do build on slopes, even if they don't notice it initially. You'd have thought though, wouldn't you? You'd have thought, if you're going to be planning this site, and you're going to be buying this steel frame house and having it thrown up, right? You'd have thought that, you know, maybe the level of the ground outside was already known. Yeah, it would make sense, wouldn't it? Because if they had to get rid of an old house that it says above there, yeah, demolished house, well, one would assume that it was sitting on a level surface, at least. But apparently, they didn't realise until after they got rid of it. And then they kind of went, oh, we're actually on a slope, so now we've got to build on a slope. And with a slope and a build, so, you know, there's only one way you can do it, right, technically, and that is to create a level platform. Right, and if that means it's 2 metres below the road level, then that's what it is. Or it could be a mud flood, who knows? But now, you know, I live in a house that's quite old, right? I worked here, right? Well, the guy who owns it owns properties, rents them, whatever. I work for him. and this is a big old house. Apparently, you know, I've not done the history thing properly, but as far as I know, without going into too much boring shit, Edwardian, right? Now, if you stand out the front of I'll video this one day, and, you know, post it, whatever. Right, so if you stand outside at the front on the road and look at the building I live in, you see the ground floor, first floor, second floor, third floor, fourth. I think there's a fifth because there's a loft conversion, but you don't see it as windows on a hallway, yeah? It's the roof. But when you go around the back, right, and look, you've got a different height of the front door. So the front door is on the second floor if you was looking from the front. So if you go up to the front of the building and the back, you've got an elevated front door, and below it is another floor. But the ground level is level with the front door bit. Yeah, I'll show you it one day. It's railing off, right? You can get down there and all that. I can get down there and get into the bottom of the building, which I've done, just to check out the foundations, because I was curious. It's mental what you find, I tell you, underneath, and it's an old building. You know, it could easily go back. It could easily be in the 1800s, dated. I'm going to do it all properly and get the proper history, and then I'll do something, a better post, and I'll show you how the building is set. So the back half, you could say, is a mud flood, quite easily. But from the front, it doesn't look like that. But I'm in Southampton at the moment. Well, I've been here for a while. At the moment, I'm just leaving. No. Right, Southampton. Now, you know, just from where I am, I'm about 20 minutes, half an hour walk from the centre of the town, city, Southampton. Right? And if I was to walk that and film the local buildings, etc., or the ground heights, there's a lot of buildings you could identify as being mud floods. But when I say a lot, you know, there's almost every fucking building, right? So so I'm right near Southampton Common, and that would be the way I would walk to town. I'd walk up a couple of 100 yards, turn and follow the common, but not in the common, yeah, the other side of the road, literally parallel to it. So you only got buildings on one side of the road for most of the walk, right? But there's some interesting stuff there, right? I will video. There's a couple of churches that have actually got visible stones with dates, builders and things like that on them, which I found interesting. And of course there's, well, near where I've been working, there's actually a building that was the date 1833, and at the moment it's being used as a bank, I think, or was a bank. I'm not actually sure if it's still operating. So the building looks like one of these, you know, it's got on the roof section, yeah, so the roof, it's got a parapet wall, which is the brickwork that goes above the finish height of the walls, yeah, on the roof area. It's up 2 floors, 3 stories, and it's done like a proper balustrade, yeah. So you've got brickwork with a coping stone on the top, and then panels within it are like little plaster columns, right? And then you've got a bit of brickwork, still got the coping stone on the top, and then you've got another little bit with columns in it, and then underneath, which would be roughly the top of the brickwork, exterior wall height, you've got like moulded scrolls and things around the windows and loads of stuff. Anyhow, yeah, I'm distracting myself. Interesting. So, these people didn't understand that, of course, if you're building below ground level, because you've got to get a level platform to start with, you're going to have to install what are known as, on this section, retaining walls. And this is obvious, right? All builders know that if you're building in a slope, you find a level platform, and whatever there is, you know, of the earth that you moved, you need to put a wall in, or else it's just gonna, you know, encroach on your building and crush it or whatever. So you come out from the wall a little bit, and then you throw another wall up. Obviously only big enough to hold back the rest of the ground. Retaining walls. It's a must. But these idiots, look. So the grounds, they got rid of a building, right? But there was something else, right? Contaminated ground from an old shed full of asbestos. Right, and I don't know what it's like where you live, but in this country, right, if you tell any fucking architect or agency or whatever you found asbestos in an outbuilding, major operation, right? You get, if it's a building site, it gets shut down, everyone has to go home, then a special company has to come out and all suited up, and they fucking screen off the whole fucking site, surround the area where the said contaminated asbestos is, and then remove it piece by piece, all in suits, into special bags and skips, whatever. Costs a fortune. And as you can see, look, the price doubled. In fact, it skyrocketed. You know, what happened to the ground survey then? You know, if they got that much money that they just didn't even think about getting the survey done properly, you know, so they could account for things like removal of asbestos, sloping ground. You know, I wonder if the builders were saying, oh no, you've got sloping ground here, love. You didn't realise, oh, well, that's going to cost. And it goes on all the time. So if the groundworks doesn't end there, the house was set to have pile foundations. Oh, here we go. Pile foundations. But there was an old quarry discovered amidst the works. Amidst the works. An old quarry. Not quite sure what they mean. All I can imagine is a void in the ground at a certain depth where the pile would have gone. Therefore you can't do a pile. Which meant a change to concrete raft foundations. And with this completed, it was time for the house itself to develop. The kitchen, well, another look from the kitchen, isn't it? But, I'm sorry, but, I don't know, maybe this appeals to you. But to me, I think it looks horrible. Right, that's the view out the front. Right, obviously all glass, yeah, which I always thought was what steel frame buildings were for. Yeah, composite materials, i.e. stuff like glass as well, filling in the gaps in between the steelwork. You know, to me, steelwork and brick, it doesn't make a lot of sense, right? Because you don't need steelwork in brickwork. If you build a brick house, it doesn't need steelwork in it. I've never found steel framework in any building I've ever been in and worked on, ever. Right, now that doesn't mean they don't do it, obviously, because I know that they do. Well, they say they do. Oh, and they also say it's a modern idea as well. So, And of course, when you see the construction sites, well, no, not the construction sites of like the old buildings. What I mean is the demolition sites, right? If they're trying to suggest with photos that these are all steel frame and then brick panels, cladding, right? Then they've got to be able to show demolition photos consisting of a huge amount of steel and a lot less stone. Right, because you don't do steel framework, right, and put in concrete blocks, because that's not the idea, right? And apart from that, that means there's a whole different thing in the construction of the foundation, because it'd have to be able to take a lot more weight. And like that house, this house, right, it's got 13 ton of steel in its construction. 13 ton. Right, now if you added bricks, solid bricks and blocks into that as well, you know, you could probably double it, maybe more. That would alter the whole spec of the foundation work, and it has to be totally rethought and redone because of the extra weight. It wouldn't make no difference to the strength, the overall strength of the building, because all that is done by the steelwork. That's why they don't technically use blocks to fill in them panels. Right, there is an argument for maybe the first floor, so from ground up to the first windows, or the first floor, right? Maybe they would do that in solid brick or block, but you know, I don't think they did any of it in steel framework. I think the whole lot is built in brick and block, the way we do it now. Only, obviously, what they do then, the use, the ad-lib of the design, isn't it? That's a good way to describe it, actually. It's fantastic. You know, I've never met builders building houses that have that kind of, well, not that they wouldn't, but the firms who employ bricklayers and all that are not doing things like that. So that artistic angle is not there. You know, if there's any fancy stuff that goes on the outside of a building nowadays, on houses, right, normally they're private houses anyhow, not housing estates. They're all just square blocks, aren't they, really, with a roof. Simple as that. Just pack them in. Right, but you would get stuff on people's, you know, if you was able to buy a plot and have a house built, you could have it built in that style, yeah. Right? But as you can see, that place that we're looking at, 2 years that took, right? So it took as long to build that house as it took to build the Empire State Building, really. Even if it was steel construction, steel framework. Here we go, look. For example, the carpentry on the roof was difficult. We had to cut the roof beams in sections to work around the steel frames. So they cut the wood that formed the roof, the trusses, because the steel work was going to be protruding into it. So they had to cut it all up, you know, and that adds, you know, more awkwardness for the carpenter. Not that they can't do it, but the carpenter can, but then that changes the price of the job that he's doing. Quite a lot, I'd have thought. The project was hit with some more delays. See? There were pieces of the frame missing. So, the company that supplied the steel framework that makes the house, basically, didn't deliver it all at the same time. And this is common, right? This is not unusual. In fact, anyone who doesn't allow for stuff like that is an idiot, right? You should allow for it, and if it don't happen, fair enough, you're lucky. But it will. It will happen. Never goes according to plan. Right? Not for anyone's fault or sabotage, it's just the way it goes. It's a guesstimate. The whole thing is a guesstimate. There's weather that comes into it, you know, all sorts of things. You never know, it could be a fucking pandemic halfway through. And I think that happened here, but it only delayed them for a week. Oh yeah, look, 2-month delay due to COVID. There you go. See? There you go, look. Now what do you think? I think, you know, I think this left hand side, right, looks like a garage. Looks like a door, big doorway into a garage. Right, but that's actually the main fucking kitchen window view, isn't it? I think, unless the kitchen's where them chairs are. I think it looks horrible. It's awful, to be honest. Don't care. You know, it's nothing against them. Right, they're probably lovely people. Lovely people with more money than sense, though. I suspect. Doesn't look like it's on a slope, does it? You know, why don't they show us the picture from the roadside? And I'd like to see that. Might see it. Oh no, that's inside the room, isn't it? But yeah, do you like it? Is that the house of your dreams? And bearing in mind, this is not their home. Of course, this is their holiday home. This is where they, you know, come to relax after working in the big city, in the office, behind the desk. www. Awful, isn't it? I think it is. Now look, again, misleading. The framework is surrounded in traditional blockwork. It's not. That's a lie. That's a total lie. It's fascias of blockwork in panel form attached to the framework. It's completely different, right? If you went to this place and stood inside, right, I'll guarantee that you wouldn't get that sense of solid construction. There's no way, you just wouldn't, because it's not like that. It's all superficial. It just looks that way. But you wouldn't. That, you know, them big old buildings, right? They are defiant to time, right? And they, you know, where was it? Pennsylvania, Tunnel. It would have bankrupted the city, so the story says. Whether that's true or not, who knows? But it's in the fucking narrative. It would have bankrupted their city, like, to demolish the town hall place, as opposed to keeping it on. That is how big and how solid the construction is. Right? That is not a steel framework building either, with panels. Right? Totally not. I haven't seen one old world building that you could possibly say was steel framework in the way they describe. Yeah, so they throw up the shape of the building with steelwork all bolted together and then fill in all the panels with essentially aesthetics. Yeah, just fancy looking stuff that's not solid. No, not true. You can't do it. And besides, I don't think they were doing cladding to that extent back in the mid 1800s, let alone before then. Interiors, again, so this place has actually got all the marble, mezzanine, you know, it's got the stuff that they have in these big buildings, the marble and all that. But the difference is, right, their house is all tiles, right? The marbling on walls, right, are adhesive panels that are attached like a tile. Look at the bedroom, man. I mean, you know, right? You know, I mean, I don't know, but nothing is an awful room, right? Whether it's your holiday home or not, right? But that, in my opinion, is not an attractive touch at all. It's fucking horrible, isn't it? What is going on? Right, and they call this the mezzanine bedroom. An exciting space. An exciting space. Well, not being funny, it's the bedroom. Yeah? It doesn't fucking matter what colour it is or what there is on the walls or the floor. It tends to be quite exciting at times in the bedroom. That makes it an I'll tell you what, it's a lot more fucking exciting than sitting in front of the idiot box That's for sure. But, you know, this is not, it's not an exciting colour scheme. I don't think it is. I mean, alright. Looks like purple to me. Purple and white with gold. I mean, but hey, I may be a decorator, but I'm also colourblind. So maybe it's not purple. Maybe it looks better than what it looks like. I doubt if that makes any sense. Anyhow, you know, I'm going to wrap it up because I've been going on for 50 minutes. But the point is, you can't even build a steel frame with brick infill one-story house to live in quicker than what they used to build things like the Empire State Building back in the day. Now, this is the modern day construction, apparently. This should be quicker and easier with experts, blah blah blah, right? And it takes them 2 years to build and finish, including the interior, a house. Right, but in the same time, you can throw up the Empire State Building, start to finish, inside and out. Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt, not as good as a wink. And yeah, complete rubbish. Complete rubbish. And any builder can see that, right? You know, I mean that, alright, I don't know, that's not how I'd have one of my rooms there. Look, the interior walls have been decorated with a dark toned theme. Making use of bold pops of colour where needed. Really? Oh, what, does that mean like the settee is the bold pop of colour? Because everything else is either purple, maybe it's not purple, might even be green. I don't know, I'm colourblind like I said. But, you know, not even the spiral staircase helps, because the spiral staircase looks fucking horrible. Looks like it's made out of metal, to be honest, doesn't it? Probably is. It doesn't talk about it though. Ain't like a wooden spiral staircase with marble fucking handrails and all that, is it? At all. You know, that's it anyhow. For that, leave a reply. Oak frame self-build. See? Yeah, it's all in here, right? All the, you know, this is just one side. It didn't take long to find this. A unique self-built home on Oxfordshire. Ooh, Grand Oak. Steel frame home in rural Oxfordshire. Yeah, see, they're putting them up. But mind you, it's not like there's a big thing with the buildings, steel frames, right? There is, well, they're as used in building as they've always been, which is sometimes, yeah, when it comes to houses and that. When you're doing office blocks up in London, yeah, well, yeah, they do. They throw it all up in steelwork, fill it all in with glass, boom, job done. Not like, you know, they're horrible. That thing they built in London, the walkie-talkie and the shard, fucking awful. You know, you'd have thought the IRA, when they fucking detonated that lorry bomb with all the fertiliser and that, down at Canary Wharf, you know, they'd have put it a little bit more, you know, they'd have took all them buildings down. But there you go, the IRA, eh? Canary Wharf bombings. What the fuck's going on with that? Was that real or weren't it? I know bombs went off, and apparently, so the news says, I've never met any, or anyone connected to that. For them, oh well, I did work with an Irish labourer. He told me how to make Irish moonshine. I don't drink either, but there you go. But yeah, so he come from Derry, and I said to him, what, you know, IRA, what was that like, living and growing up there? And he said, well, I don't know, didn't really see anything of that. It was just like growing up, you know, friends, families, and yeah. So, you know, question marks in it with everything, as usual. I think you just fucking love it. Okay, that's it. I'm off. Old world buildings are not steel frame constructions, right? It's obvious. It's a lie. There's no way. They're different. They're built by people that were very similar to us, but had a different way of connecting, communicating. Just, you know, in general. People, they just want to get on, right? But someone corrupted it, right? And I suppose part of that will be what we are looking for. Or we'll find, inevitably, I suppose. Who knows? Maybe not. So, yeah. Peace.